there, welcome back. You're watching Startup Central with me, Nayantara Rai, working from home. We are more than 50% done with a 3-week long lockdown announced by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on March 24th. The jury's out on whether the lockdown is going to be extended or not. We're not in the business of speculation, but what has been made abundantly clear is that India will exit and come out of this lockdown in a staggered manner. We are also in the midst of the harvest season. How will harvesting take place? You can't have a situation where India misses out on harvesting. There are global trade disruptions at the moment. It won't be possible to import food grains, which is why the Prime Minister, while meeting all the chief ministers of the country, raised this issue and mandated the states must ensure harvesting with social distancing. He also talked about states looking at alternatives to APMCs or mandis. He said, look at ride-hailing aggregators. After that, he had a meeting with his entire Council of Ministers, where it is believed they once again talked about the exit from the lockdown. What should be the plan? How will we ensure continuity, whether it's of food supplies or of business? And in that meeting, the Prime Minister has also on his website put up how it was discussed that truck aggregators could be looked at for ensuring that crops, food grains are distributed across the country. So we thought that's a good cue to bring out the truck aggregators and see if it's indeed possible to do this. Joining me today is the top boss at BlackBuck, Rajesh Yabaji, now joining us here. Rajesh, thank you so much. Hope you, your family and the entire team at BlackBuck is safe and healthy. That's going to be, important for all of you to rise to the occasion. The Prime Minister is talking about ride-hailing apps. I would imagine that means pooling in resources, just the way drivers and taxis and vehicles are pooled in so that, it's very efficient. He's also now talking about truck aggregators being brought on board. I guess that's also to make sure you don't have unnecessary traffic on the roads. You try and fight coronavirus with fewer people out on the streets. My first question is that since the meeting and since the Prime Minister's tweeted about it, has the community come together? Have there been any meetings with the governments, whether at the state or centre level, to take this forward?
Yeah. So Nayantara, thanks for having me here, and hope you and your family are also keeping safe and healthy at this point in time. So yes, I think the government authorities have already reached out to us, and I think there's a first level of empanelment which is happening, where they have asked us to provide details in terms of how many operators are there on the platform, and then where are they from, what's the kind of a distribution. So, we today have close to about 1 million registered users on our platform, truck owners on our platform, and I think in this entire situation of COVID lockdown, I think if we get a chance to be able to influence the entire movement of harvest and ensure that essentials in the country are moving, I think we would be at the forefront of it and ensure that it happens. But having said that, I think post-lockdown, obviously the entire movement in the country has got dried up. Initially because of more permit level issues, and now more because of factories not really operating. So obviously this has actually taken out more than 70 to 80% of India's supply out of the roads, right? And either some of these drivers are scared to come back, which means that we need to create conditions in such a way that these guys can operate in a very safety and precautionary method. And number two is that obviously if you want the trucks to be on the road, you need more jobs, right? I think this is the chicken and the egg, which I think we are at the moment solving. And I think we've got most amount of the support from the government and the authorities, and looking forward towards supporting moving harvest.
So I've got to ask you this one question. When you say that meetings have already started, that there's looking at empanelment of truck aggregators, is this happening at the state level? You're Bengaluru based, so is this happening by the Karnataka government? Is it going to be aggregated at the central level? The question I'm asking is also because you've got to have movement of trucks state to states if you're going to make sure there's enough food grains, enough food in supply.
Yeah. So these discussions are happening directly with the central government, where because ENAM today is a national portal where I think all the ENAM is essentially a central capability kit which the central government has designed, and it has asked each of the districts and states to pick it up basis they're wanting to essentially implement, right? So I think this is again the initiative by the government is again I think of the type where they are trying to build this capability and leave it out for all the states and various districts to like decide whether they want to leverage it or not. So I think the entire empanelment is happening at the central government level, and then I think it's going to be a statewide implementation where I think at a mandi level we'll have to enable and provide the visibility of supply, which can be leveraged by the farmers, leveraged by the traders. So in this context, actually today 20% of the business of 20% of the shipments which today get closed on the platform are done by actually traders, and close to about if you like also include the organized corporates, everything put together, so BlackBuck roughly moves about 30 to 40% of goods which are more the trading oriented, and of that about 25% is actually agriculture. So we have been providing the transportation services for organized companies and also unorganized traders over the last 4 years, where we are moving goods from mandis into these large warehouses, be it warehouses of FCI or warehouses of organized corporate companies like ITC. We've been into that particular execution of that capability. I think with the government coming up with some kind of central policies which would like organize this movement and enable the farmers and traders have access to the capacity of these small fleet owners in the country on the BlackBuck platform. I think it would be magical.
So I've got to ask you this one question. See, as of now, the lockdown is till 14th of April. We don't know what's going to happen closer to that. The jury is out. It doesn't look like India is close to flattening the curve when it comes to COVID cases. So if it's now, in the last week, impaneling truck aggregators, I would only imagine that, and I'm only connecting the dots here, then maybe the lockdown will continue, or there's going to be a second phase of it, because why would you need to do all of this if the lockdown is going to go away come 14th of April, or is this a solution for a staggered exit?
I think the view of the government is quite independent of whether of the lockdown context, right? So even if you look at today, right? Let's say we are today shipping out essentials all over the country, and we are moving in like we move goods today from all parts of the country to all parts of the country, and that's a complicated problem to solve. And the entire like effort today involved to reach out to a trucker, an ability to find a trucker and then move those goods has been like 10 times more difficult compared to pre-lockdown scenario, right? So supply is actually out of the streets because there are no jobs, right? So I'll just give you a typical example of how a small truck owner operates, right? So let's say assuming that he's in a Madhya Pradesh area from where he's carrying wheat into, let's say, Hyderabad. Now, typically in Hyderabad, he used to have a lot of industrial produce and goods which he used to typically carry back to neighboring or the nearby towns. That's how he used to like typically operate in his end-to-end like realization, right? Today, the context is that the fleet owner, when he's the small truck owner, when he's trying to come out of his village, out of Madhya Pradesh, he doesn't really understand whether he's going to get back any goods when he's returning. So essentially, there is entire skepticism around what will be my realization. If I would ask for 2 times the trip cost, I'm not essentially getting it, right? But if I land up in Hyderabad, can I come back sooner? And there is my driver who's essentially afraid of in this entire COVID context, right? So these are the uncertainties which are like, let's say, we are facing with in the entire trucking ecosystem, and and this is something which is like the same problem which the government would face to, like, let's say, move the goods from the mandis to these central warehouses of the government, right? So how do you enable supply? I think it's more a proactive step rather than anything linked to, I would say, on the COVID context, because irrespective of whether COVID context takes up to the lockdown is up to 14th or up to 30th, I think we have to enable supply chains, which are the fundamental
No,
sort
no,
of channels in
Rajesh,
the
I
economy,
take
and
that
make
point.
that move.
I take that point. I take your point. I know you're trying to make it sound like it's business as usual and this is what the government always wanted. But, let's get realistic. And during a lockdown with a crisis like situation, escalation of cases, I think the government's only focus right now is to battle COVID on two fronts, the health front and the economic front. You've given us some very fantastic insights over there. And kudos to BlackBuck, to all your employees, to your drivers, and all of that. It's because of people like you, the foot soldiers, that we are all getting to eat food. At least a lot of us are getting to eat food. A lot of us are getting access to essential items. But I think it's a conversation I'll need to keep having with you regularly as India also starts recovering from COVID-19. But for today, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out to join us here live, right here on Startup Central. Ladies and gentlemen, we're completely out of time. Many thanks for tuning in.